It probably was what I grew up into, a generation immigrant family. My dad left a really secure job at one point. Well, first of all, he came over here from another country. Then he left a really secure job at one point and just started doing his own entrepreneurial ventures. I remember as a kid, he had like a stack of business cards, which were his own. And like he had, like president of this company, CEO of this company. They're all like these little small businesses, but he was really, nothing really kind of stopped in his way. And I think maybe that modeling, as well as being in experiences where I could learn from, allowed me to be able to take on some level of risk there.
This week, we're joined by Sam Saliba, who's the global brand marketing lead at Instagram and has actually just a great resume. We talk about it. He's been at the big three, Google, Facebook, Instagram, and just shares a lot of really interesting insights on how he's used his gut to make decisions versus all the data that these companies collect. And I really enjoyed the conversation. Just can really see why this guy has been successful.
Yeah, well, there's a threshold for risk for sure. And where it all started was in the gaming industry for him. So he made the leap from gaming into the big three in tech, as you said. And we did talk about how he's been able to apply some of the things he learned in another vertical, right, and brought them into this vertical. And usually it's that collision where great ideas and innovation happen.
Yeah, and he's also a mountain biker. And so we just talk about how you get more comfortable with risk over time. And he's been investing in startups. And so he's brought some of the things he does in his personal life into his business life. And I just think that's really interesting in everyone that we talk to is when they realize who they are outside of work and are the same person inside work too.
Well, we of course talk a little bit about Instagram, but what I like the most is that we did talk about what he looks for when he is investing. And he's new in this space too, but like when he's looking for people that he believes in, or he's like, yeah, there's no way this person's going to fail, or the idea itself. So cover a lot of ground in the episode if you want to learn some new things about social, but also just like what makes a great team in establishing or evaluating risk. We think this episode's for you. Sam, great to see you, man. How are you?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So, Thompson, Sam and I met, what do you think it was? A decade ago?
I was trying to remember. Sometime in the past. I don't know if it was at my time at Lucas or Ubisoft, but
it's so funny. We actually will, like on that same trip, we saw Lucas and Ubisoft, but I'm pretty sure you were at Ubisoft.
All right.
I have no idea who introduced us, but it's just amazing that you run into people in your life that you just keep in touch with and you keep tracks of, and so it's been awesome to watch you kind of go and navigate these creative-led organizations. You've obviously Lucas and Ubisoft, but more recently Google, and now you're running global marketing at Instagram. Did I get that right?
I won't take credit for running the show, but I'm a key member of the marketing team. Yeah.
Have you enjoyed running the show for Instagram? No, I'm kidding. So you're global marketing at Instagram, and I honestly love the latest work you guys have put out in the world. What was that process like?
Yeah. So I've been a member of the brand marketing team. We recently launched a campaign primarily in the United States, really putting our brand strategy out there. It's called We Make Today. That's the tagline that we're using, mostly targeting the younger generation, the people that you might see on Instagram. And we launched it in mid-November. It's running now. It's running through the end of the year. But it was really exciting to be able to put a statement out there around what we stand for, what our company believes in terms of pushing culture forward.
I love the platform, and it makes me feel younger. I mean, obviously, if you're listening, maybe you think I'm younger, but if you're watching, you see there's no head on my hair. But yet, I still love. It's my top platform by far. Why do you think this thing is working the way it's working?
Well, I think that the way it's designed is really to be a platform for expression and to allow people to express what they're into and what interests them. And I think people, like users of the platform, enjoy participating in that and enjoy finding what experience is unique for them. So your Instagram experience is completely different than my Instagram experience, completely different than my kids, but we all share that affinity towards what gets us excited and the things that we love.
You were at Facebook too, right?
I was. So yeah. So as Ryan touched on, I came over, I worked at Google for a while, then came over into Facebook to lead product marketing for a new team that was forming up around focused on younger users. And I did that for, I think, close to 2 years, and then made the jump over to Instagram.
Okay. So you studied economics, you got your MBA in San Francisco or Davis, right?
MBA, UC Davis. Yep.
Okay. So Bay Area, I schooled in the Bay Area too, but you have Adobe, Intel, Lucasfilm, Ubisoft, Google, Facebook, Instagram, the big three. Did you ever imagine that you were going to design your career this way, or was this luck or happenstance? Could you just take us through the journey a little bit and how you ended up with these amazing brands?
Yeah, no, I did not ever. My actually, you want to know my real intention? My real intention was just to be able to stay in the Bay Area, which I love and which I grew up in, and that was my goal, to be able to have a livelihood here in the Bay Area. And it just so happens that I was able to focus on those areas. To your question, I think I learned early on in my career that I needed to be in a creative environment, and I needed to be in a place that allowed me to utilize kind of both my strategic analytical skills as well as my creative side. So it's kind of like a combo of left brain, right brain. And I've tried to focus my career on places that allow for that are more creative led. My first job at a business school, I took a role at Intel in their consumer marketing team, which was probably the more creative part of Intel, because they're working on actually developing a lot of the advertising and marketing. But I remember like coming out of business school and like going to the office there. I hope to not upset any Intel individuals, but just a sea of gray cubicles. And I remember just thinking like, this is not what I want to be experiencing. And it felt very corporate, and it felt very kind of difficult as a place for me to thrive. And then shortly thereafter, I moved over to Lucas, which was kind of polar opposite in terms of like being like super creative led. Obviously, like George Lucas at the helm, calling a lot of the company and product direction. But I think what unlocked what you're talking about of like leading to some of these different organizations was really each and every opportunity felt like a building block upon the other. So like, I never would have been able to land at Intel if I didn't have an experience at UC Davis, and even my internship during my business school. And then my Intel experience would have never, or my Lucas experience would have never happened without my Intel experience, and so on and so forth. It really felt like as I was able to like encounter each of these new opportunities, they were truly building blocks, either through the connections of the work that I was doing or the people that I was interacting with along the way, really helped to open up doors. And then I think, a combination of just maybe some luck of being in the right place at the right time.
Well, you're obviously talented and good at what you do. I like what you said about just finding a creative outlet too, or something that was creative and push that side of the brain. And I was recently reading a couple different articles, one by Warren Buffett, and he quoted saying something to the effect that you should really look at going to work for a great leader versus trying to design the resume and all the brands. Just find a great leader that you respect and go work for that person. And then Elon Musk is quoted saying, there's this MBAization, I guess, so many MBAs leading companies these days. And he feels like there's a loss of creativity and focus on product and service. So I'm just curious, you've been in these great brands, you've been able to kind of open up the hood and see behind the curtain, I guess, at some of these great brands. And I'm wondering, have there been great leaders that you've worked for? Are there things that you've learned for them that have helped you continue to succeed in your career today?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I like to try to optimize for as well, too, of like being in a place where I feel like I'm continually learning and someone that I can learn from, someone that embodies and of like my values and things that I want to strive to become and I can model after. But the flip side is true too. I've definitely worked for individuals that I will just say are abrasive and difficult at times. I'll try to protect the identity of any of those individuals. But you see a real difference, right? A difference in not only my motivation, but the motivation of like the team that's involved and individuals wanting to do their best. And I think a lot of that leads to high performance teams. And it's not about just the capabilities of what that individual has. I think a lot of it comes down to EQ, emotional intelligence, being a good people person. And the best leaders that I've worked for, I think embody that and kind of like that high EQ score that really gets at driving organizational and behavior change.
I think we remember our favorite boss, and sadly, I think we remember the one that didn't get it done for us, and I'll protect the innocent or the guilty in this case as well. But I am curious, this is a show about courage, so let's put you on the spot on your favorite sort of like number one boss you ever had. I'm sure you've had many great ones, but if you could only pick one, I know we're about to upset 2 or 3 people, but if you could only pick one, who would it be for you and why?
Yeah. Well, so I had a chance to work under Gary Briggs at Google, who's an amazing individual, embodies a lot of what I just talked about, not only an awesome and great marketer, a mix of like strong CPG background as well as tech experience, but also just a good human and a good individual. And really capturing kind of that mix of like left brain, right brain, whole individual. So really inspired to work under his leadership, and obviously our CMO at Google, Lorraine Toohill, was pretty amazing. And what took me to Facebook was Gary left Google and came over to Facebook. And prior to that, Facebook had never really been on my radar as a target company, but I really joined to continue like working under his leadership at the company, which I was really fortunate to do before he retired.
There's that old like people join companies but leave managers, but in this case it sounds like you joined because someone you really believed in went over and you followed them into that universe. If you, by the way, one of the things I always am terrified of is, I always wanted to be liked. Like it was important that I was liked. And I think there's a difference between wanting to be liked and being a people pleaser. But I wonder, like where there were times, and Thompson's laughing because unfortunately he did work with me for a little bit at a previous agency, but I'm waiting.
Why do you say unfortunately?
Poor guy. You poor guy had to work for me in another life. But I'm curious, Sam, if you throw all these experiences in the soup, like so you got Google in there and Facebook in there, you got everything in there, and you were going to scoop out sort of 3 huge learnings from those experiences on what it takes to, like, you're going to go to this next company or a new division of Instagram. and you're going to have this team that's reporting to you. What are the 3 big learnings you bring forward?
Yeah. So, all right. So I'm doing this on the fly, no prep work, but I'd say number 1 is like,
that's important for the viewer, right? Because Sam did try to claw the questions out from us, and we're like, no, we're going to keep it conversational. So I apologize, but that's just the way we roll here.
No, it's great. It's great. So first off, I'd say, like we just talked about, optimize for who you work with. So much of the experience is like your direct manager, your supervisor, and opting around good people that you surround yourself with. That also, I'm cramming this all into the first point, but not only who you work for, but who you work with. So let's just call it optimizing around people. Second is being in a space or industry or working on a product that you inherently are excited or have a passion for. If you can't do that, then that's what motivates you every day to kind of keep going and keep pushing. And so I think having that sense of passion of either the product that you're working for, marketing, creating, building, the industry that you're in, something to keep that long-term endurance going. And then third, which is probably the most important, is I'll put in the category of just kind of confidence. Like I've learned that nobody really knows what they're doing.
So true.
I don't want to get into politics here, but we've just had a president who can clearly pull off 4 years, and I'm not sure if he knew what he was doing, but nobody knows what they're doing. And it's a matter of just having the confidence, having the courage to show up every day and figure it out, problem solve, find the solution, break down barriers, but do what you need to do in order to get the job done. And part of that involves like putting yourself in roles that are scoped more than you're capable of. If you're not pushing yourself and you're stuck in something that isn't tapping into your full suite of capabilities, then you're not learning, you're not growing, and you're probably making less of an impact. So it's about like placing yourself in the right kind of roles that allow for that scope and going for it.
Yeah, I can't agree with that more. I remember my first VP of marketing job in new city, new boss, Cornell graduate, and he's like, here, I need a deck, tomorrow. And you're just, I know that feeling of like feeling overwhelmed, and you're like, am I an imposter? And we've talked to other leaders who have this imposter syndrome. And I think a lot of people deal with that. I'm curious, you've launched these amazing consumer campaigns at very data-led companies, right? Definitely brand-led, and creative, but also have a tremendous amount of data. And we all know there's a huge balance between what you feel and what the data tells you, right? We're dealing with humans here. So I'm just curious, like with your background in economics too, how much do you rely on your gut versus, kind of the more rational side, all the data? And we know that can create paralysis at times, but how much is feeling versus the actual data in your job and launching these big campaigns?
Yeah, well, I think each of my experiences has at different companies, different products have led to a better understanding of how to really develop and create campaigns that resonate well with end consumers and the role that data plays. My economics or business school background, I think that just helped me set up to understand research reports and if something is statistically significant or not. But I'll contrast like a place like Lucas, where George Lucas is like making decisions about what goes into a product or creative led decisions really just based off of his own gut instinct, and what led to the development of, his multi-billion-dollar enterprise was all from his own gut and his mind, versus a place like Google or Facebook, where it is largely data led, and instincts sometimes get pushed aside. But I think you really need the balance of being able to know how and when to look at data to inform decisions. But data is never going to answer the questions around which spot should I run, which spot should we put $1 million, $10 million, $30 million behind. And part of that comes from not only instinct, but studying your consumers over time, and learning about what resonates. I am a huge fan of utilizing data to get signals, but then making decisions based off of really what as a marketer to be true.
Yeah, I always find that, like, how dangerous is gut really? George Lucas seems to know a thing or two about, escapism, and then on the flip side, how dangerous is data? Because the data, you can make a case that data is really good at predicting what's happened and pretty decent at predicting the future, but does it cap your ceiling? Does it really stretch at the level that I don't know the answer to this? You probably know more than I do because you have access to so much data. What's your take?
Well, I think the struggle there is there's in the, I'm not like a data scientist or anything, but it seems like there's a constant yearn to try to capture all the different data signals to have a really clear understanding. And you could probably do quantitative analysis on multiple different advertising spots to determine which one resonates best with each segment of your market. But ultimately, in your campaign, in your marketing, in your advertising development, it always comes down to having some signal internally around directionally which way we should lean. And that could come really early in the cycle when you're developing, like, what the positioning is, or the core, like the USP of your brief, or it can come a little bit later as you're actually like looking at creative and ideating on concepts with your creative partners. But someone, either the marketing manager, marketing lead, VP of marketing, CMO, somebody along the line needs to make that gut call.
Well, I think that's what they get paid to do, right? At the end of the day. And, decisions are tough, and sometimes you just have to, go back to what you said, have the confidence, and not everything's going to work. And I don't know, I've been in many discussions with analytics and finance, and, they think one route is the route. And if you played Monday morning quarterback and went and looked and really reevaluated, no one is right. So, I mean, we're just dealing with human interactions here. And I'm curious, in your career, you also went from one industry in gaming, and so you become an expert in an industry, and then go into technology and are dealing with, again, data and creative led organizations and big brands. And what was that like? I mean, was there any fears that you had to address in making a switch and kind of relearning or starting from ground zero?
Yeah, I mean, I started in gaming because I really had a passion in that area since I was a little kid. And it was awesome to be able to make a career out of it. One of my early bosses at Lucas, I remember she said something about like, oh, I'm committed and still working in the game industry because I've been here so long. And at this point, it's too hard to make a switch. And that kind of stuck with me because I never saw myself as like going down one path or being siloed in one area. So it was awesome to be able to make the move over to the tech industry, working at places like Google and Facebook. To your point about like that transition, I do remember it was like a huge culture shock stepping into the world of like having just tons of information, tons of data at your resources, but also tons of resources available to do marketing. It certainly felt like drinking from the fire hose when I first made the switch over between industries. Also, I did feel a little bit of that imposter syndrome that you mentioned, walking into a place like Google, where they're at that time like really surrounded by tons of Ivy League individuals and stellar, amazing backgrounds of individuals in leadership roles, and I was just stunned around like, whoa, what am I doing here? But it was a great kind of continued learning experience to, I think, continue to accelerate my career. And it's been awesome to kind of be at the forefront of like where tech has been going, whether it was with my time at Google on the different teams that I was part of there, or even now more recently in the world of Facebook and Instagram.
I mean, that's what's so fun about like Silicon Valley and all the brands there, is that you get to kind of play in the future a little bit. I'm curious, like one thing I've always found about different industries, and I started and I kind of grew up in advertising. So you work on a whole bunch of different clients and industries, and so you learn language, right? Like every industry seems to have their own glossary of terms, and like business has its own, right? And entrepreneurship has a whole nother language. So like, how big of a hurdle was that coming into Google, Facebook, Instagram? Did they speak differently? Like, I feel like, because I came into the actual casino gaming space, and I really had to learn how to talk to people and how to communicate with them. So, and I know just from my experience in the tech industry, like if somebody has no experience in that, listening to a conversation, they're like, "What? This is a foreign language to me." Was that a hurdle at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, I want to say that my kind of outsider perspective, I hope, was appreciated when I made that switch over. I was just really authentic and myself. I think the continuity and connecting thread is throughout my entire career, I've always been focused on the end consumer. And in any marketing that I've done, really focused on garnering consumer insights and how to connect marketing with the end consumer. And that was really true in video game marketing as well as search engine marketing. You're just kind of like replacing one product for the other product. Through my interviews and through my early days at Google, I was just really authentic to just focusing on being a good consumer marketer. I do believe at that time that organization was also trying to build up more of their capabilities in that area. And so they probably appreciated that outside perspective.
I don't know why this reminds me of this, but maybe because it's like you started, in some ways there's fear, right? When you meet the person who's been in gaming for 40 years and you're like, oh no, like I don't want to get stuck in this particular vertical, and you leap. But for some reason, this reminds me of Jane Fraser. So Jane Fraser, she's the first woman to run one of the big banks on Wall Street, which was Citigroup. And the CEO at the time came to her and said, start taking on all the odd jobs like that you wouldn't think would be your path. So you start to learn different perspectives from different places. And in some ways you can make a case that your odd jobs in this case was like gaming. And how does that show up? I'd love to know like how that shows up now in your world today.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I've definitely kind of leveraged that through my experience, both at Google and Facebook. At Google, one of the projects I worked on was a trivia game that we launched, and I really leveraged my gaming background. We even did partnerships with Electronic Arts at the time around that game. It also led me eventually to work on Google Play games, and I was the global lead for that for a while. In my current role, I've both at Facebook and Instagram have been really focused on younger users who, whether it's teen or 13 to 24, 34, that's the same market that video game industry targets, and there's a lot of crossover there. just last week we did a big partnership with the Game Awards, which is the largest streaming game award show, the Oscars of award show, where we integrated our campaign into that award show and really use it as a chance to show some product magic with like different AR effects that you could do utilizing Reels. So there's been kind of the connective dots that have come along the way, and I've helped to try to leverage that wherever possible.
You're also an investor, right? You early investor, and
I do. That's my side gig. You could say so. Yeah, I kind of stumbled into it at my time at Google. There was an individual that was on my team. He was working for me and went off to kind of quit the company and become an entrepreneur and start his own thing. And that kind of led to like my first angel / seed investment. And for me, that was really not so much investing in the company or the idea, but more investing in him, because I worked so closely with him. I knew what he was capable of, and I knew any idea that he pursued was he could make it happen. And that has since gone on to be like a really successful endeavor. And so that kind of like put a spark and fuel to the fire. And since then, I've also just used my advantage of being in the tech industry and making connections to try to talk to as many people as possible and see when individuals I know might be starting a company, or if there's spaces that interest me. So in total, I think I've invested like close to 10 companies or so over the span of like 5 years. And it's just, I'm dabbling in it. It's kind of fun. I'm not putting my entire life savings at it, but it's a nice combination of risk and reward, where I get to help be a part of the journey of some of these companies that entrepreneurs are going out and starting, and at times advising based on my own subject matter expertise. And it's, hopefully feeding more of maybe this leads to something. I don't know.
I mean, you're kind of in the Mecca, right? Like the culture of where you live it sort of drives people to be curious about innovation. So you're in it as it is. But I'm curious of the 10 that you're in right now. Like if you had to break them down into, because I'm sure you've learned a ton. What percent are you like, wow, those are going? What percent are you like, well, I didn't see that coming? And what are sort of in the middle?
The VC or angel model, you expect 9 flops, but you have one that is the moonshot and going to help pay for the rest. I can't say that my batting average is like better than others, but let's say out of 10, I definitely feel like there's 2 to 3 solid moonshots. There's definitely one, which is the first one that I talked about, that's on a really solid trajectory. There's 2 or 3 others that are that I'm feeling pretty good about. And then there's still a lot of question marks. These are like really early stage companies where like the business plan might pivot and fluctuate from half to half or year to year. It's a wait and see. And also, expected time frame is like a 10-year journey. So we'll see what happens. This is more of a long-term adventure.
I always see the podcast as a little bit of it's like a love affair for me. And I think Thompson, you feel the same way. Like it's almost unfair. You get to sit with people like you and just learn and listen and ask questions but in some ways isn't that sort of the same thing? You get to invest in all these different curious people that you believe in. Like what have you learned from them along the way?
Yeah, well, it's part of it's inspiring, right? I do feel like I have an entrepreneurial bug about myself as well. If I was like reincarnated in a different life, I'd probably like I've got a million ideas, but I don't have a time to do any of them. So it's great to almost like live vicariously and also invest in people that I believe in. A lot of times if I'm like talking to a founder or meeting a founder, I spend less time. I mean, I want to know the idea and what the business problem or the market is that they're going into. But a lot of it is about who the individual is. This circles back to the beginning of our conversation, and whether you're assessing who you work for or who you work with. A lot of it is about does that person bring the right kind of balance, holistically, and whether that's just, are they just intrinsically a good human? Do they have a good sense of like left brain, right brain, emotional intelligence? Because that's going to inspire them to be able to lead their teams, to be able to convince other investors or venture capitalists, to be able to convince partners. And so that's a lot of what I try to look out for.
It's still pretty cool that the economics guy is like, let's get the money, let's put the money aside and like really see what this person is all about. And Ryan and I, it always at least starts with values. Like, are you clear on your values? Are you clear on like who you are and what you're bringing to the table? And then how do you surround yourself with people that are really good at things that you're not good at? Go from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's so important. And, you hear a lot about purpose today. And I think like part of purpose just comes out of passion, for something, and you find a purpose in life or business or whatever you're doing. And you're a mountain biker, correct?
Yeah, I am, correct.
And have you started any business ventures in mountain biking, or is it just something where you're exploring what you can do and how it kind of pushes you athletically and it's mental too, for sure. But maybe you can just share a little bit about how that inspires you in the business place too.
Yeah. So no business ventures yet. I have these fantasy and dream ideas about like a really cool local bike shop that's a coffee shop, but maybe also a wine bar. But we'll see. That's maybe more of the retirement gig. But no, I think the connecting dots there are, I don't know if you've picked up on it at all in our discussion, but I have a pretty good appetite for risk. Whether that's in diving into new situations or investing money in unknown entities, or flying down the hill at reckless speeds on a mountain bike in more treacherous terrain than I probably should be doing. I'm really passionate about mountain biking because it allows me to, it's my form of exercise, but it also allows a little bit for that thrill seeking, allows me to get that adrenaline rush still in terms of like an appetite for risk. I also volunteer as a coach for a local high school racing team. And I don't teach them, I teach them how to avoid risk, not how to take on risk. But that's rewarding for me in seeing and coaching and mentoring up and coming athletes. It's really exciting. But my passion is more about, it's a fun, great way to stay physically fit and take risks. It's also my form of meditation. Sometimes I go out there alone and I'll think of great ideas that I can apply to my work or continue to just draw inspiration from.
Yeah, I get that. I run a lot, and it's always my meditation space. And when I get ideas, so I'm just curious, where'd this appetite for risk come from? I mean, was it parents? Was it innate? Is it something that can be learned? Do you think you can teach this to others? Because like we talk about courage, and there's if you're talking about the makeup of that, there's a certain aptitude for having knowledge, right? And if you have the knowledge, then you feel like you can go out on a limb and take a little bit of a risk if you're informed, right? So I'm curious, where did it come from? And do you think it's something that you could teach others?
Yeah. I do believe it could be adopted. I think if there's somebody to teach others, it's going to be you two. You guys are developing a solid curriculum around that. I think it can be developed, but I think you need a combination of things, right? You need to be able to have someone or others. In my case, it probably was what I grew up into, a generation immigrant family. My dad left a really secure job at one point. Well, first of all, he came over here from another country. Then he left a really secure job at one point and just started doing his own entrepreneurial ventures. I remember as a kid, he had like a stack of business cards, which were his own. And like he had, like president of this company, CEO of this company. They're all like these little small businesses, but he was really, nothing really kind of stopped in his way. And I think maybe that modeling, as well as being in experiences where I could learn from, allowed me to be able to take on some level of risk there.
San Francisco?
I grew up in the Bay Area, in the East Bay. Yeah. So most of my life, we moved around a lot, probably like in second grade, where I stayed ever since.
As you take more, do you feel more confident? Like, is it confidence building? Like, as you do that, and like with mountain biking, it's like once you go down a trail, okay, I know that trail now. It doesn't seem as scary. I assume like the same thing in kind of the business space too.
Yeah. You touched on that in your first question, and I think that is part of the key. Is it's like that the intrinsic rewards that you gain from it. It sounds like you were like involved a little bit in the casino and gaming industry. I'm sure like gaming clientele experience that same thing, where if you're on a roll and you're on a winning streak, like there's that sense of confidence that you gain from getting rewards from taking these risks. I just think individuals need to be really calculated and smart with risk taking, and have a right sense of balance of like know when to take risks, know when to double down, but using those opportunities to reinforce each other. Real quick, like I mentioned, like my first an angel investment or startup investment. Luckily, that one was kind of successful, which I think sparked a fire in me to try to want to find others or invest in others. Had that been a disaster, I probably would have been done. I'm out. Not good. But I think it's that motivator of building on your winnings.
Well, it's also interesting that now you've got maybe it's not like completely deconstructed, but you have a construct. You have a process that you're looking for when you do go into other curious investments, which is pretty fascinating. Now, we got to start to wrap this thing up, and I almost feel terrible for someone who's been listening, because we've been talking for 40 minutes and we didn't even get to Instagram at all. So give us like a little dirt, like give me something on Reels, give someone, if I'm running social media at a brand, like, without giving away the house farm here, like give me something that we should sink our teeth into, and why.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for users of the platform, I think it's pretty obvious. Instagram is a place where creators are there, and in every capacity, in every different interest category. So we talked about a little bit in the beginning, doesn't matter what you're into and what your interests are, you'll be able to find some thread of that on Instagram. We're firm believers in that creators and young people represent kind of the future of what the platform is. And also, I think I mentioned our positioning of really pushing emerging culture forward as a place that Instagram, where that culture happens and is sparking. Some examples of that are, like you mentioned, Reels. Reels is a great new format that we've launched that allows people to create short form entertaining videos and express themselves in new capacities. Instagram is ultimately, like, at the end of the day, about self-expression and That can happen on Reels, that can happen through stories, it can happen in a personal message that you're sending to your friends. We try to be a little bit agnostic in the ways in which people express themselves. But it's really about that level of sharing, expression, and ultimately leading towards pushing culture forward.
Would you recommend, and again, you could be like, Ryan, cut this part out. So fine, but I'm going to go there anyway. Would you certainly nudge someone to use Reels more right now? Is there anything in like more viewership on Reels than on other parts of the platform?
Well, it's kind of like I was just saying, Reels is just another format that allows people to express themselves in the ways that they want to. So I would encourage individuals to take advantage of everything that Instagram has to offer. But it also depends. We know, like from insights, like people don't decide necessarily like take this piece of content that I made and share it here. It's more they develop or they come across a really compelling piece of content or an idea for sharing content, and they try to find the best format to share it in. And that might be in a story. It might be in a really beautiful picture that you post on your feed. It might be something that's more personal and you want to just send through a message. But if you're creating something that's funny and maybe short form entertainment, then Reels is the better place to do that. So it's really about having another option to be able to share that stuff where, when, and how you want to.
I got to tell you, if I was going to sum up this episode, it really is less about risk mitigation and more about risk navigation and thinking through the places where you navigate risk. And if you're gonna navigate risk, make sure you're going to optimize by the people you surround yourself with, as you stated. Be passionate about what you get yourself into, because even in your hobbies, you can tell that you're passionate, whether it's investing or it's biking, and then go for it. You know, if you're gonna do it, you know, we always talk about our definition of courage. It's not courage without the action piece. It's knowledge plus faith plus action. So have the confidence to just admit that no one really totally knows what they're doing, and to just go for it. So Sam, awesome to see you. Maybe when this pandemic is lifted, we can come up to see you, or if you want some fish tacos, come see us in San Diego.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on the show. And any parting words?
No, thanks for having me. I don't have a book to plug or anything like that, but you can follow me on Instagram, sam.saliba, or Twitter, sr.saliba. I always need more followers. I need to try to compete with all my coworkers.
I can only imagine. Thanks so much, Sam. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed the episode, please give us 5 stars, subscribe, and leave us a comment.